Welcome to Grant Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome Tim Durling to the show. His book, Unspooled, An Adventure in 8 Tracks, is now available on Amazon for a second pressing. So get yours now. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have an interview and discussion. Let's get started.
Crank up those headphones. It's time for Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome Tim Durling to the episode. This is a bit of a special episode because Tim and his book, Unspooled, is back in print and available on Amazon.com. So the original pressing, this is an original hardcover edition, out of print, kids, but yes, you can get it now. And I want to welcome Tim to the show so we can just talk about it a bit. So, Tim, congratulations on the reintroduction of I guess this would be a second printing then, of Unspooled. Congratulations.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks for having me on, too. Yeah, it's a second edition. It's updated a little bit. There aren't a lot of major changes between this and the first edition, but the biggest part is that, yeah, it's now available through Amazon as a print on demand. And that was always a goal, but we were a little bit ahead of the curve because I don't think Amazon was quite up to speed at doing that at the time that the Kickstarter campaign, which is how the first book was sold. But now it's there, whatever country anyone calls home. You know, if you're in Canada, it's .ca. If you're in Australia, just look for Unspooled. Now, that brings Unspooled by itself, I've noticed, brings up a few things. There's a podcast that talks about movies. But if you type in Unspooled and my name, Tim Durling, or if you type in Unspooled and Martin Popoff or Julian Gill, because they're contributors, you'll see this. So it's hard to miss. And because it's Amazon, it's got the nifty little look inside feature. You can all the pages, see if it's something that might interest you. But yeah, it's available again. It's in soft cover, but it looks really good. Like this is a copy of the new.
Oh, that's the new one. Okay.
This is the new one. So you'll see it's got, okay. That's not on the first
it's
copy.
not on the original. Yeah.
The back cover looks a little bit different. It's got a spot for the TeePublic merch. And one of the chapters we had to change up a little bit because there was some information in there that was no longer, it referenced an account that doesn't seem to exist anymore. So we had to change that into something. And the other, really the main thing that makes this different is that after the first book went to print, I never really stopped doing research on the topic. And I found about 24 more titles of albums that are confirmed to exist on 8-track through the record club. So they've all been added to their respective year-end lists. And as a matter of fact, we took 2 out of our 1982 list because we discovered that they actually did exist as retail. So that disqualifies them from being in the year-end lists. They were, if anybody's curious, the 2 titles were Megaforce by 707 and Eye in the Sky by Alan Parsons Project. Apparently those were available in retail form. So that literally by name that they're no longer record club only. They're just record club, but they were also retail.
Wow.
So
I had no
trusted
idea.
sources came to me with pictures and said, these aren't RCOs. Good to know. Next time so we made, but that's the only thing. That's the only thing, really, and then just a few more added to each.
Well,
year.
It sounds like if you're a completist, if you're an 8-track fan, this is the definitive book on 8-track collecting or anything in the 8-track world because no one's talking 8-tracks. And it's one of those things where we probably should talk 8-tracks because it was a medium that was very popular back in the day. And it's just fascinating what came out and what didn't come out, especially towards the beginning of the 80s when 8-track started to fizzle out.
Yeah.
And a lot of the record club stuff still existed because that pretty much carried on for a while.
Yeah, that was the whole reason I wanted this to exist. I think it's important for things to be documented. Doesn't matter what it is. And this was information that there didn't seem to be a definitive source. And I'm still, to this day, I'm still surprised by the people that say, well, wait a second. They made, there were 8-track tapes in 1988, and through Columbia House and through RCA Music Service. And I always wanted there to be some sort of document of what came out, what was confirmed to come out, like what's absolutely certain.
Yeah.
And, that's not all the book is about. As you know, there's collecting stories in here. This is a book that's geared towards like some people that like music memorabilia and collecting and that sort of nostalgia. There's a lot of cool stuff in here, but at the end of each chapter, which is a year from 81 through 88, there is a list of all known titles that still came out on 8-track. And, you might look through them and think, well, I didn't know that, not only certain albums, Grant, but just artists that you don't think of as belonging in the 8-track era, but in some cases did. So, it's always been something that's fascinated me for reasons I'm really not sure why. But, I've been fortunate that a lot of people seem to think so too, and because the response has been really good.
Well, I must say, this is the definitive book. If you've got the original pressing and you want the update, please go to Amazon and order the print-on-demand copy. It's a must for anybody who is into 8-tracks, into, physical media, for God's sakes. The kids today don't quite get it, but, we get it. And check this out. Go to Amazon, order it. But let me ask you this, Tim, because we've never talked about this before. How did this whole idea germinate? What spurred this off, and how did you, start this whole project?
Well, the idea of the first idea has sort of been germinating for a long time. I mean, I've just been a music nut from as far back as I can remember. Big classic rock fan. I grew up through the 80s, but I ended up in the turn of the 90s. I ended up getting into a lot of 70s era bands like Kansas and Queen and Zeppelin. But I'm old enough to remember 8-track tapes when they were popular. They really are primarily a 70s medium. And what made them so popular was their portability. You could pop them into your car. You didn't have to listen to the radio. You could listen to whatever you wanted to listen to at a moment's notice, right? So a lot of people, our age and older know what they are, but I always kind of wondered, when did they stop making them? Because there came a time when you'd go into a store, whether it was a record store or whether it was just the music section in your local department store, and they didn't sell 8-tracks anymore. For a while, all you could find was vinyl and cassettes. And then, sometime around 85, 86, I'm just going to shut my door here, hear my dog. You started seeing these CD, contraptions. But so I always figured that, okay, well, it must have been around 1981, 1982, they stopped making these things. But I discovered a website that I reference in this book called 8trackheaven.com. Now, that website's no longer active, but it still works when you go to that URL, because there's an archived version of it. But it was a wealth of information on the 8-track tape, but it contained a section that really was the switch that changed everything. It was called the 80s Club, Record Club only 8-tracks. And that's when I discovered that Columbia House and RCA Music Service in the U.S. continued manufacturing albums on 8-track all the way through 1988. 1988, and that really stood out for me, because it's like, I was listening to Top 40 radio. I always looked at record stores. I was always fascinated by them, even when I was a little kid. But I had no idea that there were 8-tracks of albums released 1986, 87, 88, that really just blew my mind. And then as years went on and I got, more access to the internet, I started discovering more and more titles that were released, because initially there was just a few, but just the fact that they existed at all was kind of a mind blower. And I remember thinking, it's too bad that there isn't a book on this. It's too bad there isn't some sort of reference manual, an easy reference that you can get just to flip and look through and say, hey, that's cool. So that idea had been there for a long, long time. But what really brought it forth was, wow, it's been probably, man, it was a year and a half or 2.5 years. Like, time is just meaningless to me now.
Don't talk to me about
Like
time because I can't
it's definitely
keep track.
it's post COVID, right? Because that's when everybody discovered Zoom, and like it was a crappy reason for it, but it opened up a whole universe for me of people to talk to like yourself, right?
Right.
But I ended up doing sitting in on a panel. I've sat in many times on Rush fans. Ryan Murphy's wonderfully run Rush fan site, and sat in a lot of cool panels and have had a lot of cool discussions on there. But this one particular one, Martin Popoff was going to appear. Now, I've been a fan of Martin's books since his very first one. I bought his very first book back in 1993, and I was like, this is really cool. This will be really cool. So we all did this panel, and then I thought I should see if he wants to come on Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Like, well, what am I going to talk to him about? And then I thought, okay, well, here's someone that knows a lot about music. Here's someone that's 10 or 11 years older than me. I bet he remembers more about the disappearance of 8-tracks from store shelves. Like, he'd be the type of guy that would notice things like that. And so I messaged him. I thought, if he's going to remember me, I'll do it now while it's fresh, and then, to his credit, he came back and said, sure, yeah, it sounds good. What do you want to talk about? So I mentioned that to him. He said, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll talk about 8-tracks or whatever. And he had a few, he collected a few over the years. But so I had him on, and he didn't know about this 80s only thing. He thought of them as maybe petering out in the late 70s, or definitely the turn of the 80s, like most people, most people that give them any thought, right?
Yeah, but it was kind of like a slow fade out, It's not like it was announced. They just kind of trickled to a stop,
Yeah, they really did. Like, there were still a lot that came out in 1982. By 1983, I think that there's about 6 known retail 8-tracks. Like, it really, when it stopped, it stopped. But it did kind of peter out. So I was telling Martin about this, and at the end of our conversation, I don't think he really meant it as a statement of purpose, but he said someone should do a book on this, and that really affected me. I'm like, wow, if he thinks that there's a book idea here, there must be a book idea.
He's the man. He would know. Books. He would know.
Yeah, and it said, well, I thought, well, if he's not going to do it, maybe I'll do it. Of course, I had no idea what I was doing, but I have to mention, the reason this book exists is my very good friend Matt Phillips, who's been a buddy of mine for over 30 years. He's a very talented designer. His company is called Go North. I'm Go North Design. I'm giving him a shameless plug because I stand by his work. Anyone who's seen the book has seen what I can do. He was cool about it. He said, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it look really good. So that set the whole thing in motion. And it took a long time. Like, it was fall of 2021 when we finally had the book in a completed enough form to take it to Kickstarter. Because we didn't have any money.
Oh, I didn't even realize you did Kickstarter.
Oh yeah, no.
This is fascinating because I didn't know the whole story. So this is great.
Yeah, so it went to Kickstarter. Yeah, you must have bought one after the fact when we had some left over, or we had more.
I think when I bought mine, you were damn near out.
Yeah, but I think what happened was we ran a Kickstarter campaign, a pretty successful one, and we had a lot of entry-level packages. We had hardcover editions, we had softcover editions, we had bookmarks, we had tote bags, a lot of cool stuff that we sent out depending on how people ordered. It was very, very successful. We were blown away by the response. Needless to say, we reached our goal and then some. But what happened was, we ran out, and then I still had people messaging me wanting to know if they could get a book. So there was enough interest so that we talked to the people that printed them off for us, and we got a few more run off. And I think that's how you ended up with yours, because we were just doing that one ourselves, right? I mean, we had to package them up and sell them and ship them ourselves. that's one of the great things about, now we don't have to do that. There's no, there's none of that. But one of the things I was concerned about, because you've seen the book, you've seen how good it looks.
Yeah,
we were concerned that the quality of the print wouldn't be as glossy, that the images wouldn't pop as well, but it looks really, really good. It looks really, really good. Like every page, there's graphics where you just say, wow, that's, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. And I also have to give Julian Gill a shout out. I mean, another well-known author who's, been a big help. Julian contributed a really cool chapter to this book about kiss collecting, because nobody's crazier than a kiss collector, right? We all know this. And he had done books through the print on demand through Amazon. Most recently, his most excellent book called Mass Hysteria, which talks about Kiss between 1980 and 1981. So it talks about the big Australian tour and Peter Criss leaving, Eric Carr coming in. And, it was roughly the same size as this. It's not quite as many pictures in it, but it looked really good. So he helped us get that going to make this available through Amazon. And the response has been really good. And I'm really, really happy with how it came out. I mean, in a lot of ways, it has my name on it, but Grant, I did a little bit.
It was a group effort.
Right? I had the idea, but this is a great looking book, and I can't take credit for how cool it looks. And I try to explain it, because I don't want to overemphasize the fact that there are lists here with 8 tracks in them, because that does sound kind of dry. But if you love the idea of collecting, like if you collect anything, you know what that collecting bug feels like. And when you just got to have something, it doesn't matter. All collectors have a different focus, right? For some people, I got to get all Japanese pressings and they got to have the Obi strip, or, I want to get a full set of, the original Kiss dolls, or, baseball cards, or whatever it is. You'll read things in here and you'll go, yeah, that sounds like something I'd do, or that sounds like something I'd spend money on that people would not understand. And so it's a lot more than 8 tracks. That just happens to be this medium that existed longer than I ever thought it existed. And when you get these late 80s albums in that format, they don't even look like they should exist. So that's one of the things that kind of enchants me about it. They're out of time. They're an anachronism in motion. By the time 1988 rolled around, CDs were up and going, and yet you can still get new music on 8-track. Not everything, but a lot of major label releases still were coming out on 8-track. And it's amazing to me that it lasted as long as it did. I don't know what made them finally decide to pull the plug on it, but there it is. I mean, I don't know if there'll ever be a fully definitive list, because you might still discover some that unearth because they're in such small quantities. But I wanted to have a document where if you read a title in the book, it exists. It's as accurate as we could make it.
Well, it's funny because when you say print on demand, now with your book, when you mentioned it, when we talked about doing this show, that's really the first time I'd heard that from Amazon. Now, I was aware of print on demand for like CDs. Like this is the Sky CD, Doug Feiger's first band.
Yeah.
This, which is a phenomenal record. And the first 2 albums came out on print on demand from Amazon. Now they're out of print. You can't get them. Both phenomenal records, and they're through Doug Feiger's family or whatever you want to
say. Or whatever, yeah.
The estate. The artwork is top-notch. The CDs look like professional CDs, but these are CDRs.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with the mastering on these, they sound absolutely wonderful. I shouldn't be promoting it, but this is the thing. Print on demand, I get it for CDs, but I'm surprised that we can do print on demand for books. This totally changes everything.
It really does.
In the printing industry, because think about it. Anybody could go there, put their book up there and have it print on demand.
Yeah.
And it's so easy.
Yeah, you got to submit it, and and they check to make sure it's not hate speech or something.
Right,
they make sure it's fit for people to read. and then you're good to go. And
Holy crap.
it's actually pretty easy. I mean, if this had existed, I mean, this is like us being a little ahead of our time. If this whole thing existed, we never would have done that Kickstarter campaign. We wouldn't have had to. But it was a great learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is October of 2021, so we're coming up on 2 years now. Because Matt lives in a bigger area, it just makes more sense that we had everything shipped there, because he lives in a city and I live in a tiny little village. So he said the books are here, and he sent me a picture, and there were like, I don't know how many big boxes full of books. And I posted a picture of it too. It's like, holy crap, I have a book. But then it's like, now I got to get rid of these things. Like it was kind of intimidating. It's like, the longer these sit here, this is money. So we don't have that anymore. Somebody wants a book, and the simplicity of it, because even after Kickstarter, when people still wanted books, like, yeah, you can PayPal me. And some people are like, I don't know. I'm going to send this guy I don't know some money. Now it's, and people like simple. I like simple. How can I get your book, Tim? Click the link. It's that simple, So yeah, now the truth of the matter is we don't make much off each book. Obviously, Amazon takes the lion's share, but they also do the lion's share of the work. Mm-hmm. There's no shipping involved. There's no packaging up. There's no making sure that everything is, knock on wood, and the whole experience of putting that first bunch of books out. We had one package that arrived damaged. Guy sent us pictures. There was a tear in a corner. It just didn't look good. So we had to send him another book. And then there was one order that we actually shipped to Australia that it was months. And the client was really good about it. And they said, oh, don't worry about it. Stuff takes a long time but after a while, it's like, no, this is ridiculous. We got to send it. Well, turns out they ended up getting the book. So hopefully they gifted it to someone else. But other than that, we had a pretty smooth run. But there was still that going to the post office and getting the packaging done up, and the labels and the addresses, and, and it did cost a fair bit to ship all these out. Like I said, it was a labor of love, but you don't get rich off of this. But the simplicity now is that this is available ongoing. Now, as far as I know, there won't be a hardcover edition, but this softcover edition looks really good. It's really, it came out really well. Like the print quality is such that, the red doesn't swallow up the white print. The bleed is really good. The margins are good. It's, it's easy to pick up and read. And like I said, if you bought the first one, there's really not that much different about this. But if you didn't get it first time around, you were kind of curious about it, but you weren't sure, it's now available. It's available again. And I'm telling you, if you've got people that are on your Christmas list or birthday list that are hard to buy for, but they love collecting music and they love little music minutia things, this is the book they didn't know they needed. So, one thing that there are things that I do ask that people do, if they can, even if you aren't buying a book from Amazon, even if you've already got your book, if you would leave a review, that would really help keep this at 100%, high rating, and, keep it in people, keep it in your feed. If you type in music memorabilia, we used a lot of keywords to keep this closer to the top. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books, but yeah, if people would leave reviews, that would be fantastic. And word of mouth, share it on your social media. If you like it, if you like the book. And so far I've it's been nothing but positive feedback, and the support has been great. But yeah, the word of mouth matters, because when I coming on here, I always notice a bump in book sales. So I'm not looking to get rich, but I do want to get this book out to people, because I think it's important. I think that it's important to document things, and this is such a little known piece of music history but it's still a piece of music history. It deserves to be documented. So
Right.
this serves as a reference manual. I think it makes a great coffee table book. If you want to sit down and read it from cover to cover, you can do that too, but you don't have to. You can flip through and pick up it anywhere and read it. It's not necessarily, you know, a narrative start to finish, even though it does go through the years chronologically. And I've even called it a good bathroom book, a good bathroom reader. And people laugh when I say that because, but as we all know, those are books that people return to time and time again. So, you know, I'm okay with that. But you know, classic coffee table book in design. It's something you have set out and people go, oh, what's this? And the nice thing about it is that now, you know, say someone was over, saw that book and said, oh, what's this? Well, now you can say, well, yeah, it's, you know, here's how you can get a copy of it, rather than, oh yeah, you should have been there when it was sounding. Boy, it was great.
Yeah. Well, Tim, I think this is awesome. I want to congratulate you on this. Phenomenal. I mean, it's glad it's back in print. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be just clamoring to get a copy of it. Go to Amazon, get it. I don't care if you bought this book before, get the updates, get the brand new version. If you're a completist, if you're an 8-track fan, you're a cassette fan, physical media fan, go check it out on Amazon. How long does it, real quick before we wrap this up though, if someone goes and orders it on Amazon, how long does it take for Amazon to ship that?
I know it doesn't take very long here in Canada. It might take 3 or 4 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it takes about as long as it would take to order just about anything from Amazon. And
but even these didn't take long, and it was like print on demand. You just put your order in. It might take a couple of extra days, but while these were offered, it's probably the same thing, Tim. Probably. Yeah. I mean, we look at this and go, "Oh my God, it's a whole book." But the technology is
they've got the technology, and if you you know it's very specific the way you set your formatting up. But once they've got it, they've got it. You know, there's, like I said, there doesn't have to be warehouses full of them.
Right. Just amazing. I'm just blown away by the whole thing. So anyway, I want to thank Tim for coming on, talking about his book. Go to Amazon, get a copy of Unspooled. You won't be disappointed. Like Tim said, the artwork is great. The design is great. It's a top-notch publication, and it is a must for anybody into 8-tracks or physical media. It's just a must. It's just a fascinating read. So go to Amazon, make an order. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody that's supported the book so far. And like I said, if you could just leave a little review on Amazon, I would appreciate that too, because every little bit helps. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun talking about it, because basically I made this is a book I always wanted to read. So just happens I had to do it.
Yeah, it's because you have the passion. It's not about setting the world on fire and making $1 million off this. It's about getting the information out, because yes, there are other people like you that are interested in this, and it's important that it's documented, because there's where else you're going to go. So there you go. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, go to Amazon and order that book. Tim, thanks a lot for coming on. Hopefully we get some sales from this. And I guess I'll see you on the Helix episode. That's what's next.
That's right.
This week.
That part 3.
Part 3.
And we're gonna talk about the bring it up to the present day if we can.
So check out Tim's channel down in the link. Show us the mug, Tim.
Yes.
Tim's vinyl.
I don't want to sell everything, but we do have merch available for cheap.
All right, so check it out. Make sure you go to Amazon, buy the book, and we'll see you on the next thing. I don't know exactly what's coming up on my channel, but Tim's got a lot of great content, so please check his channel out. Please like, subscribe. You know the routine. We'll see you on the next one. And Tim, thanks a lot.